Hello everyone and welcome back to one of these ranking videos. And today we are doing black metal and to save some time I'm not going to go over like our both of all of our views of black metal and we're just going to get right into it. I have Tommy, you know him from the metalcore video, and we have Kyle, you also know him from the metalcore video, and Monica from the Doom and the Bathory ranking. So, you know how this works. I just wave my mouse around and click an album, and that's what we do. So, the first one we're going to talk about is. Wow, starting out with this one. And I want to mention, since I just selected Burzum, if you have. If you have any opinions considering the artist, just focus on the music because we are just focusing on the music. We're not talking about Varg, John from Dissection, people like that. We're just focusing on the music. So if you have a ranking based on one of, if you have a ranking based on one of the artists that did something, just try to push that aside for now. So this is Philosophum by Burzum. Um, oh, I forgot this. I forgot to say it. The order is gonna be me, Monica, Tommy, and then Kyle. So anyway, this is Philosophum by Burzum. This is one of the most influential albums, regardless of what you think is of Burzum. Influential to atmospheric black metal, to be more specific. Dunkelheit, I personally think is a great song. I really enjoy like the chord progression, or in the synth or whatever that is used in the song. Varg's distorting his vocals in this album, which I think is the best thing he's done because I personally think his vocals are trash. Jesus Tot kind of reminds me of a Under a Funeral Moon by Darkthrone. Um, I think it's decent, but I don't think it needs to be 8 minutes. Erblickte die Tochter des Firmaments is alright as well. Since there is no cool chord progression here, like in Dunkelheit, this is just alright. Gebrecklichkeit um, is just a long, drawn out song that repeats pretty much the same sustained riff with the synth coming back in again. Cool atmosphere, like I get what it's going for, but it's not super captivating. Um, the long ambient track, I don't know. It's chill, but I guess it's something that is okay to play in the background, but personally not something I would go back to like at all. Especially since it's been 25 minutes. The closing track is alright. Um, it's just Gebrechlichkeit, but without the vocals. Overall, I don't really. There's the first two tracks are pretty good. Everything else is meh. I'd probably put this in a good C tier, and that's all I have.
So I would personally put this album in probably B tier, low A tier. You know what? I would put this album in B tier. Um, right off the back, I'm gonna say the last two tracks off this album I could care less. I mean, the second to last track on this album I could care less for. It's just 25 minutes of really nothingness I don't really care for. And then Gabri, that song, which I'm gonna butcher the names of all these albums and songs, by the way. So fair warning. Gebrek, that one. Part two is basically the same as part one, so I don't care for that. Dunkelheit is a great song. It's iconic. I love I guess, like synths or keyboards that are in that album. Um, and then I also really like the distortion of Varg's vocals. I think it really fits the album. And something I really appreciate is the like cold, kind of shitty atmospheric production. I really enjoy that a lot. Jesus Todd is a really I enjoy a lot as well. It's just the same riff over and over for about 8 minutes, but like Maz said in the previous tier list video, you get something good. or you get something that you enjoy and you just like diverse in it, you just enjoy it. Um, so yeah, and then Arbliket, that song I really like, especially the opening. I really love that riff. And again, a lot of it's repetitive, but I just think the riffs are engaging enough that I don't really mind it being just 8 minutes of the same riff. So I'd put this album in B tier.
I'm a big fan of this one. I really like it a lot. Um, I think it's just unparalleled in terms of its atmosphere. Um, as a whole product, it's not a great album. Like, it doesn't have great standout singles, in my opinion, other than Dunkelheit. The other ones, outside of the context of the album, aren't that great. Um, but I think together and when in sequence, they all fit together really well. I think having Gebrekkte Kite 1 and then 2 is kind of neat. Um, just the added ambiance on the when it comes around the second time after the big ambient track is really nice. The vocals suck, but they're kind of pushed back further in the mix, so I don't mind it that much. Um, but as a whole, I think this is one of the best like displays of atmosphere in any album, pretty much ever. I think it's a classic. I think it should be listened to.
Like this is probably like only the third time I've ever actually listened to this album. I don't really ever give it much thought, so I never really had an actual strong opinion on it. But like starting with the positives, I think it has like kind of like a mysterious vibe to it. I like the keys and synths, especially on the first track. I actually really enjoy the first track. I think it has a pretty cool riff. The drums are pretty groovy in it. Like I like some of the riffs overall. I wouldn't say the vocals are absolutely the worst thing on it. The guitar tone is a little mid, and most of the riffs are too. But I think the ambient track kills it for me a little bit. I think it ruins the pacing, but I don't really hate this album. Like I said, I like the first track a lot, and I give it like a solid C tier. That's really all I have to say about it.
Are we all okay with B tier then?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so next album is cool. This is Written in Waters by Ved Buens Ende. Um, this kind of sounds like Isengard X crossed over with Deathspell Omega. I don't really find I don't really find this album really appealing. I think a lot of the ideas are cool, but they just kind of fall flat for me. Didn't really care for the harsh vocals either. It's cool for the sound it's going for, but I didn't find this album to be interesting to me at all. So it's so it's a C tier for me. That's all I have.
I also didn't really write that much for this album either. It reminds me a little bit of Eld, either Eld or their like just their enslaved proggier black metal stuff is what this album reminds me of. I did love the female choir, and I did really enjoy the song Autumn Leaves. Overall, nothing really stood out. It was good album, like good songs and stuff. It's just nothing really special personally. So I'd rank this in either B or C tier.
I personally really like this one. I think it's one of the most unique albums I've ever heard. There's nothing quite like it. It's very weird. I think the cleans are really, really awesome. I think the riffing is super fun and unique. Some good clean riffs in there too, mixed in with all the crazy dissonance. Um, Autumn Leaves is really good. I agree on that. But just for the novelty and how unique it is, I give it kind of a bump up. I put it at a solid A tier. I think it's really really fun for what it is.
So this is probably my favorite weird black metal band and album overall. I think it's a cool mix of progressive metal, black metal, and jazz weirdness. The album has like a very otherworldly and dissonant vibe to it, with a very almost mysterious sounds to it. I have no idea what bro is talking about in the lyrics, but it sounds pretty cool. The riffs are kind of a mix of wacky and smooth. The bass lines flow really good as well, and the drumming might be my favorite part about it. I love the fills, and they have great grooves with it. I think the clean vocals are really good, and I actually kind of like the harshes. It kind of mixes in like this sudden vibe of extreme metal to it, and I think it flows very well with mixing like that extreme black metal with the progressive metal. I'd probably put this in S tier though.
Alright, to confiscate for me and Monica's opinion, we're gonna put it at the very top of B tier, in front of Philosophum.
Valid.
Alright, next album we got. Okay, we got Infidel Art by Psy. So to start, Izuna is pretty good, but yeah, the MIDI instruments and drums are definitely out of time with each other. It's got some good riffs though. The Last Effigy is a pretty good track. Beyond Centuries is pretty cool. Suicidal Genetic sounds like a Sodom song besides the first half of the track. Guitar tone is cool, but not everything else. This is kind of weird, but it's not much else kind of grabs me or my attention. But this is not C tier, but this is low B tier for me, and that's all I have.
This is the first time I've ever listened to this album, and I came in thinking it was going to be like a very proggy black metal band. Um, but I ended up really loving this album. I'd rank it either A tier, maybe even S tier, probably A tier. I love the addition of synths in the first song. I love the incorporation of piano and synths throughout the whole album in general. It sounds like happy black metal, basically. I think it's a great album, and it incorporated a mix of what I felt like was a lot of doom and a lot of thrash influences. So I'd rank this an A tier.
Yeah, they kind of threw everything at the wall, and I don't think any of it
Yeah.
stuck. Um, there's nothing for me to grab onto here, like at all, in my opinion. There's some kind of neat ideas, like I said. They're just kind of throwing shit at the wall, and I don't think any of it stuck. I give it like clean, low C tier, high D tier. I don't know. I did not have fun with this one at all.
Damn.
So this is probably like one of the peak black metal albums for me. I think the style is really unique. I love the mix of doom metal and epic black metal. The synths kind of sound a little cheap, but it's kind of charming. And despite the production, I think the sound is kind of perfect for the style. It's got like a medieval to classic horror sound. I think the riffs are good and epic. The drumming is nice and smooth. I like the heavy bass sound it has with it. I'm a huge fan. Zombie Terror is probably one of my favorite black metal songs ever. And I just love the piano parts, and there's a lot of variation. The mix of harshes and like the opera clean vocals add another cool layer to it. And I don't know, this album really grabs me. I think it just sounds fucking awesome. And I would give it like a S tier.
Alright, so this is I really don't know how to place this one. I think we'll give it a high B tier because
That's fair enough.
Tommy has it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just like one last comment on it. Like you said earlier, Aaron. There's parts of this album that just aren't in time, like at all.
It's kind of funny though.
It's really funny.
It's like, what the hell?
What the fuck? What did they listen to it?
Probably they're like, yeah, that's good.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, next album we got. Okay, Alcest. We got This is actually the third Alcest album I've ever heard. I'm not gonna fucking try to pronounce the French because don't, I have a hard time pronouncing French words anyway. To start, this album has a very nice like spring feel to it. I love this how the acoustic guitar sounds. But like in comparison to like I forget the Blue album and their most recent album. This is definitely a lot more shoegaze than it is black metal to me. Um, Obviously there is like heavy like black metal like inspired riffs in here. Um, I was kind of expecting a little bit more intensity, and I also noticed there's like no harshes in this at all. Um, which I think would have added a little bit more atmosphere to this album as well. I think it's good for what it is. But yeah, if you're looking for like black metal, I would not recommend this album specifically for their sound. I would recommend the Blue album and their most recent one. I would put this in low A tier because I do really like the atmosphere that this brought. And atmosphere in like this genre of music is something I'm starting to appreciate a lot more. And that's all I have.
I'm glad to hear that from you, Aaron. Um, I love how melancholic or melodic the songs are throughout the album, and they've done a beautiful job incorporating acoustics. Ciel Errant and the last track is a slight change in mood as it sounds happier, almost as if a story has finally found a positive resolution. It sounds like you're in a Zen garden where there's a pond with a mini waterfall. I don't have any complaints at all with this album. I think everything sounds good. Production, vocals, guitars, just everything. So overall, I put this album in A tier.
I think this is like kind of the peak of black gaze in my opinion. Um, it's obviously more on the shoegaze side than the black metal side, but I prefer that most of the time. Um, I don't have a whole ton to say. It like lives and dies on its atmosphere. It's a very springtime feeling album. It's a very complete project. Some of the more folky parts are very very cool. Um, something that kind of like I feel slips by a lot of people that listen to this album is how good the drumming is in some spots, particularly on the last track. It's really really good drumming. Um, but yeah, they're a great band, and I kind of wish they'd go back to this sound a bit more sometimes. I give it a high S tier.
Um, this is kind of where my opinion falls off here. The album itself is really beautiful. It's a great mix of melodic and kind of sad too. There's a lot of good clean parts and acoustic parts. The vocals are really good too. And despite I only have like really good things to say about it, but I also didn't really like it that much. It's just not my style of music that I would really listen to. Like I'm not a huge fan of black gaze. So I don't think my opinion on this thing really matters too much, but you can either take it as a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay. I think we could all settle for A tier then.
Yep.
All right. Cool. All right. Next album we got. Cool. This is Heaven in Flames by Judas Iscariot, and I know the person next to me is gonna be talking my ear off here in a second. Let me find my notes for this. Okay. Okay, so when this comes to like one man raw black metal albums or bands, I think this is probably at least maybe the best. I'm not sure, but this is definitely one of the best like one man black metal album or bands in my opinion. As you can tell that this band does worship Darkthrone. As you could tell that this album in general is a lot of Transylvania Hunger era Darkthrone worship. However, that being said, I think there's a lot more substance here compared to Transylvania Hunger. An Eternal Kingdom of Fire is a cool epic track, especially when it hits like the middle section. And also that song kind of reminds me of like the eeriness of like the COD the COD War of War soundtrack. When you first boot up the game, and I really like the atmosphere here as well. Even though it is repetitive, I do enjoy the riffs and the chord progressions. In the song "Eternal Bliss," "Eternal Death." Below a Circle of Darkness, gonna be honest, that song kind of sucks. One of the riffs in here just makes me like imagine like some dude coming up to another dude saying, "Yo, dude, check out this cool black metal riff," and it's just the lamest thing you've ever heard. From Hateful Visions is a fun song though. Reminds me of a song that I can't put my finger on. I think it's mostly the strumming pattern that I'm referencing. The outro, An Ancient Starry Sky is pretty. Overall, the playing on this is obviously rough because it's, very minimalist. It's very raw, but that's what you get from this subgenre of black metal. And my biggest complaint is that Before a Circle of Darkness sucks. Overall, I really enjoy this one though, so let's 8 tier. That's all I have.
This album used to be my favorite album of all time briefly before it was overtaken by another album that we'll be talking about here shortly, I hope. Um, yeah, oh my goodness. I love the just the cold atmosphere, and I'm gonna be saying this a lot throughout the video, so I'm sorry. I love the cold atmosphere throughout the entire album. I love the album cover itself. I think it's awesome. An Eternal Kingdom of Fire is probably the best song off the album, either that or from Hateful Visions. The part that I really appreciate the most from An Eternal Kingdom of Fire is the little, I don't want to say the solo, but it's the part where it's nothing but just the instrumental. That part just, it's so, I guess, melodic. I don't know, but I really like that a lot. Gaze Upon the Heaven in Flames, Eternal Bliss, Eternal Death. All of those songs are amazing. Before a Circle of Darkness, the little riff that Aaron was referring to. Yeah, it does sound a little silly, but I think it's kind of cute. Uh, from Hateful Visions, that song is probably the most happiest sounding song off the album. It just sounds happy. It sounds like, I don't know, like we've come across a resolution in like a depressing story or something, which the whole album kind of sounds depressing. And this is like your little break. Um, Spill the Blood of the Lamb is a great song, and then there's also this Blitzkrieg version of it on, I think it's their EP or it's their off of their EP, which is like 10 times faster. And I honestly like that version a little more than the one off Heaven and Flames. And then An Ancient Starry Sky is a great 2-minute song to just end off the album. It's pretty, it's cut to the chase. So overall, I'd stick this in S tier. It's amazing. Oh, and the fact that this comes from a lonely man somewhere in Illinois is amazing because for the longest time I thought this was from Europe somewhere.
It's alright. I like it. I think it's kind of like entirely unnotable. I like genuinely have nothing to say about it. Very Dark Throne. Pretty raw. Vocals are kind of subpar, but I don't mind it. I'd give it a solid C tier. I don't have anything really to say about it though.
So I wasn't really a big fan of this one. I think the tremolo riff before on Before of Circle of Darkness is cool. And honestly, one of the best riffs I actually enjoyed with it was on the outro. I think the drumming annoyed me kind of a lot. It felt like a little sloppy to me. And there's just like I don't know, it's one of those like black metal things where it's just like the same, drum beat over and over. I didn't think there was much variation from what I could remember. I wanted to like it, but I just really couldn't. And I give it like a high C tier though.
Alright, well, it's gonna go right here then. Sorry, Monica.
Aw.
All right, next album we got. All right.
Is that Mesmer maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Kjarn, maybe by Mizmor. This one, the tone of the guitars are rather interesting for a black metal album, but as the opener, but as the opener goes on for longer, it starts to sound a lot doomier. Um, the title track is the Kieran to Suicide is cool, but breaking up sections with acoustic and um shit. I think this album is fine. Um, I like the sections where it breaks up with acoustic, but other than that, I think it's just yeah, I think it's just fine. The vocals are good and everything else is, but since there are long songs, most of the time there are sections of the songs that I like more than like the entire song. Because I'm not looking at the track list right now, but I believe this is the songs are like really long, and yeah, I don't enjoy them as like full songs. I enjoy sections of them. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I think the opener is my favorite track though. I put it at a solid low B tier probably.
I'm gonna be straight up. The album was all right. Wasn't really anything fascinating at all. It's fine. It's just meh. I would stick it in C tier.
I thought this one was really good. I was pretty pleasantly surprised with it. I was a really big fan. I think this is a lot more of a doom metal album than it is a black metal album, like significantly more. But I think it's really fun. It's very pretty. Has great atmosphere. It's just absolutely like pummeling and in some of the riffing. Um, Very depressing album, but what they were going for, obviously. Or I think it's one guy, right? I was a really big fan of this. Like some of the more biblical theming in it, it's kind of neat. I'd give it a pretty high A tier, I think.
I'm kind of with you on that. I was always a huge fan of this album. I think it does a good job mixing on black metal and very very heavy doom metal. It's probably one of the most open albums I've ever listened to in terms of production, and it kind of gives you a sense of peace when you listen to it, despite it being also really depressing. Um, the way it moves from black metal to heavy doom metal, I think is very well. And even like the noisier bits that he adds in there is I kind of enjoyed those too. It's very atmospheric, but it's also very brutal and heavy. And I don't know, I just really like this album. I think it's one of the best black metal ish albums I've ever listened to, and I give it like a solid A tier.
All right, yeah, we're putting it at the very top of B. God damn it. All right. Next album we got. Okay, this is The Forsaken by Antester. So, I think this is a pretty great album by a pretty great band, and also the band also started as like a death doom band, and I've listened to like some of their demos, and it's pretty good actually. Um, Rites of Death is a pretty sick opener with like the woman vocalist, and then going into some more blistering riffs. The clean male vocalist kind of reminds me of like Matt Heafy a bit. Doloroso reminds me of like the doomier like the doomier side of this band that like I just mentioned. Um, they do add some death metal elements into this album, like in the song "The Crown I Carry." The song in particular reminds me of later Old Man's Child with the heavy riffs and the occasional, I guess, like MIDI symphonic strings they put in it. Betrayed sounds like something off of like I said the Old Man's Child debut. I fuck with it pretty hard. As I Die sounds like a mix of like a heavy metal song, metal death, and black metal song. Um, the string instrument gave me a whiplash into like that song in particular gave me like a whiplash into like a Children of Bodom song. Um, I do not, and I also don't really care for how some of these drums sound, but overall, I think it's a very strong album. I'd give it an A tier.
It's nice to know that there are great Christian black metal albums like this one. I'm glad that I had the chance to listen to this, as I forgot how great this album sounds. Via Dolorosa is one of the best songs off the album as it introduces synths and has a slightly doomy riff. Rade is a nice acoustic that I underappreciated when I first heard this album years back. It's a great predecessor to The Crown I Carry, where the song pulls you back in where you first started. I used to not like As I Die, but since I last listened to this album, I've grown to appreciate Oprah-like female vocals in metal, specifically black metal. Overall, I'd put this album in A tier.
I've never been a huge fan of this one. I think it's at its best when it's more melodic, but some of the riffing is just kind of boring and kind of crappy. The symphonic elements just kind of feel thrown on top. One thing I will say, I really, really like the vocalist. I think he's very talented. But beyond that, I don't have much to say about it. High C tier, but entirely unnotable in my opinion.
So I actually just found out that Hellhammer actually did the drumming on this album, which is something, I guess. I will say I don't like it as much as a lot of other people do, but I still think it is a really good album. It's probably the epitome of unblack metal, because that's a term. Veil of Tears is probably my favorite track on it. I think the symphonic element is pretty nice. I love most of the riffs. I think the solos are really good, and it's got some great shredding solos in it. Even the chimes are cool. It's got some great variety in it too. I give it like a solid, like high B tier.
Dude.
Damn.
All right.
I'd say mid B tier.
All right, fine.
That's fair.
This is looking fucking. All right. All right. Next album. Okay, we got another.
Yes.
We got another album that my neighbor is gonna be talking my ear off about. This is also another album where I didn't really write that much. This is Fathers of Icy Ages by Blue Aus Nord. When I think of good Atmo Black, this is one of the albums that comes to mind. The cold atmosphere and the kind of gritty guitar tone, while also being very riffy. Sons of Wisdom, Master of Elements is a riffy banger. Always a treat when there are like folkish chants in a black metal album. Also, this album also has some of the heaviest riffs in Atmo Black, in my opinion. The title track is an example. This album is pretty consistent from track to track. I wish more atmospheric black metal was like this because I find a good chunk of it to be very boring and just fully, even though that is the point of atmospheric black metal, I feel like it would be a lot better if they just like focus a slight bit more on riffs and maybe it would appeal to me a bit more. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I'd give this an A tier.
I would put this album in S tier. It's my favorite album by Blue Aus Nord, and this album also used to be one of my favorite albums of all time before it was overtaken by another album that hopefully we'll get to. Um, this album starts off with Slaughter Day, which, fun fact, this is the song I was listening to when I got into my car crash. So it was almost my Slaughter Day when that happened. Um, and then the Forsaken Voices, that song, there's this melody there with the guitar where it kind of plays like a high note and it sounds very whimsical. It sounds so atmospheric. I don't know how to explain it, but it sounds so like yearning, I guess. Like it sounds so mournful. The Territory of Witches is probably my favorite song off the album. It's just so fast, it's brutal, it's relentless. This whole album in general, it just showcases so much like cold, bitter atmosphere. And then all the riffs, each song has displays so many good riffs. The vocals are nice and uh, shrilling, and then Fathers of the Icy Age is a great song to end off such a beautiful album. Uh, so yeah, I'd put this in S tier.
I think it's pretty good. I think it's very nice atmosphere. I think it's very riffy. I think the vocalist is really good. Um, all I knew about Bloodhouse Nord before coming into this was they had like a weird industrial era.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's kind of what I was expecting coming in. It's not what I got, obviously. But yeah, it's just pretty solid. I give it a solid high B. Pretty big fan of it.
So I also thought it was really good. I love the overall mood that this album gives me. It's very cold and dark. I don't know where the album cover is from, but I do love it. It's got a nice painting. The riffs are really cool, and especially like the kind of fast, thrashy, and brutal moments. I remember I used to hate the way this album was mixed, but I kind of learned to love it. My only complaint is that still like I feel like the synths are a little loud and they kind of drown out everything else. And I have a hard time hearing most of the drumming, but I still think it is a really good album. I put it in like A tier.
All right,
Tommy, you
yeah,
made a
yeah, we're going there.
great.
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to mention that I love the guitar tones of the album. I love how muddy they sound. And I also forgot to mention what Tommy said that the synths they do sound very loud on the album for some reason, and it does kind of
Kyle said that.
oh, Kyle, my bad. Uh yeah, it kind of takes away from like the guitars or whatever's going on in the background, but otherwise it's fantastic album.
All right, next album we got Peak Part One. Okay, this is Bella Kinga by Istap. This is one of the goats on this tier list. I found this a while ago and was instantly hooked with the riffs and the catchy folky choruses. I think Ivantan Pa Den Absolute Notebookten is the best song off this album because of the riffs in the beginning and how the song builds into that fucking awesome chorus. Despite it actually being, despite the catchiness and it being in Sweden or Swedish. Snow is also a highlight. Nord, which I'm just not, I just took a word from that song title because I'm not pronouncing it. Is also a really good highlight with that main melody. I think this is very very good. And the only thing I would change about this album is probably the guitar tone because I'm gonna be honest, this despite the a lot of black metal sounds like it's coming from a practice amp, this sounds like it comes from a practice amp. But I think this is one of the catchiest albums in this tier list. Definitely mid S tier, but considering we have no albums in S tier, I don't think it matters. So that's all I have.
I don't have much to say about this album other than it's a great album. I don't really have much complaints if I'm being honest. And the song, I forget the name of it. Aaron Mensch, what's the name of the song again? That's really catchy.
Ivantan Pa.
Yes, that one is probably my favorite off the album. It's so catchy, and the chorus just always gets stuck in my head. So I'd put this album in A tier. It's a great album.
Yeah, this is my favorite black metal album ever, personally. Super catchy melodies, super good choruses. Snow is like one of the best songs ever, pretty much. There's not like a ton you can really say about it. It's like bog standard, but it does like bog standard melodic black metal really well. It's like not unique at all, but it just does it perfectly, in my opinion. Um, yeah, high S tier, high S tier.
So I also really like this album. It starts out pretty fast and kind of thrashy, and the pace is also really good. I really think pacing is kind of important in black metal. The riffs are really dope, and I think the mix is also good. It's got a good mix of melodic, thrashy, and dissonant riffs. The drumming is really good. I love the fast-paced blast beats. It's got some cool harmonic work too. Dash is probably my favorite track on it, and I'd give it S tier too.
All right, cool. Finally, thank God. All right, next album we got. Oh hell yeah, we got Peak Part 2. So we're gonna go. All right, so I did not write anything down for this album because I listened to this album so many fucking times, and this is my personal second favorite black metal album of all time. Um, at the Foulness Depths is just an amazing, sinister opener to this amazing album. Night's Blood is just so it just starts out just fucking punching you in the face. Unhallowed is just I love my favorite part of this album is the ending part um where uh it's a little bit more heavier where Dead Angels Lie is just one of the best metal songs in my opinion. Even Children of Bodom covered it. Um Retribution, amazing. Thorns of Crimson Death is just one, like Hayden has said, is just one of the best metal songs again in general. Soul Reaper, I've always found this song to be the weakest of of all of them. I think this song kind of reminds me more of Sacramentum more than Dissection. Um, and just this album just ends with a very beautiful piano. Um, the guitar tone is great. I love the drum sound on here. I love how the bass sounds. The snare is just so good. I love the harmonies and melodies. Just this album is just like a straight 10 for me. So this is definitely like I think this is my favorite. Yeah, this is my favorite out of all of these albums. I think John's performance is amazing. Uh, just this is just a timeless album for me, and that's all I have.
This album, first of all, the album cover is so sick. I love it. Um, this album, I would probably put it in S tier. It's a great album. There's not a single dull moment throughout the album. I appreciate the acoustics a lot. Night's Blood, all of these songs are fantastic. Every single song has such a catching riff that just makes you want to listen to more and more. Where Dead Angels Lie used to be my favorite song off the album, and don't get me wrong, it's an amazing song, but it got replaced by Thorns of Crimson Death. I really love the opening. I don't know, it's a fantastic album. There's not really not much for me to say other than it's fantastic. I'd stick it in S tier.
I like this one. It's grown on me a lot over time. I used to kind of be a Dissection hater, but I'd put this in a solid A tier. It's really really well written. Um, you can tell the melodies were pretty well thought out here. Um, some of the times the piano comes in and is nice, good acoustic work, good vocals. Um, just a lot of talent I think went into this one. Soul Reaper is a really good song. Um, so I'd say a pretty mid A tier. I like it.
Dude, like the album cover of this kind of reminds me of the Knights Cavalry in Elden Ring. I just had to say that. Um, there's something about the snare sound on the first two Dissection albums that just really gets me going. I just fucking love that snare sound. There's some cold ass riffs in this. They sound so epic. I love the acoustic overlay in Soul Reaper. I think it makes it sound even better. The progressive nature of some of the tracks, like Thorns of Crimson Death, make it even more epic. The drumming is just so spectacular. I love the drums. I love the grooves. I love the fills. And there's a cool scream. I think it's on the Night's Blood. That's just such a cool touch too. Gives it like more of a horror vibe among like a winter vibe, and it's just such an amazing album. I give it S tier.
Hell yeah, let's fucking go. Okay. All right, next album We got. Okay, we're getting all of my favorites apparently. This is Blaze in the Northern Sky by Dark Throne. I gotta find the. Okay. This is one of the most influential albums in the genre, and it still holds up to this day, in my opinion. Um, this took a bit to grow in me when I first heard it a while ago, when I was getting into black metal, but now it's one of my favorites ever. This album has some punk and still has some death metal influence carried over from the debut. Very fun riffs like in The Shadow of the Horns, the title track, Pagan Winter, and Paragon Belial. Nocturno has. This album in general probably has my favorite vocals in like quote unquote traditional black metal. Um, the vocal performance is just spectacular. Where Cold Winds Blow, I always thought was the weakest on the album. Just not. It's still good, just not as like great as the rest of the songs. I really love this. I really love this scream where the everything cuts out and the guitar and it's just a guitar riff, um, in the title track. I think this album is full of fire riffs, and Pagan Winter is just hell of a closer. This is definitely S tier for me. That's all I have.
I really appreciate this album's whole guitar tone. I love the trashy mudiness sound of it. The vocals are great. I also really love the album cover. I think it's kind of funny. Overall, great album. My favorite song off of it is I forget the name of it. Oh, it's the self-titled. A Blaze in the Northern Sky is probably my favorite song off the album. Second to Therium, Life Code. I'd stick this album in probably A tier.
I think it's gonna grow on me more over time. I will say. But where it stands now, I think it's a low B tier. I'm kind of just a Dark Throne hater. I'll be entirely real. Um, I do like that it carries over some of the more death metal parts of Soul Side, because Soul Side is my favorite Dark Throne album. I think it's their only like really really good one. I haven't listened to like any of the like Crust era stuff, but I can't imagine it's that great. Um, but for what it is, I like it. It's repetitive as all hell, but it's okay. Vocals are solid. That's a kind of a plus. A lot of older, more raw black metal has miserable vocals, so it's kind of nice. Um, Definitely better than Transylvanian Hunger or any of the other shit after. It's kind of similar, so I give it a low B tier. Pretty decent.
So this album I kind of looked past it a few times before doing this, and it's probably just like instantly after listening to it again, it's probably my favorite Dark Throne album. Um, I love how there's a I love the variation of like the death metal element and the black metal element. It's very gloomy and it kind of has some spooky leads in it. It's got some very doomy parts in it too, among with the a little bit more death metal riffs in some parts. The third track, I think it was, had some cool hammer-ons. The drumming is really good. I do hear some good amount of double bass and cool fills to add with some of the variation that was kind of pretty meh black metal drumming. The production, I think, for it is perfect. It's gritty and harsh, yet I can still hear everything nicely. And I think it's an amazing album that I look past too often. I give it like a high A tier.
Yeah, I think that's where we're gonna put it for now, because I put it in S tier and Monarch. Okay, yeah, you get the point. All right. To get some of these bottom albums, I'm gonna do a circle, which I'm scared to which one I'm gonna grab. Okay, thank God. All right. This is Moon and the Scorpio by Limbonic Art. Um, I've written a lot for this one apparently. This is the first album I've listened to by this band. and I've re-listened to it a bunch of times because honestly I really wanted to like it. It eventually clicked with me. This album is full of great melodies and grand moments, melodies that get stuck in your head, like in Beneath the Buried Surface and also the title track. The album cover is one of the most beautiful album covers in the genre, period. It's so nice looking, and I cannot just stop looking away from it. Apparently, the cover was done by a member of the band, which is awesome. And through Gleams of Death slash Overture Nocturne, I really like the main composition, the intro. Um, this one I could see the orchestra composition being played by like a conductor. Like I could just visualize the concert that's playing at. And I can confirm that the band has an actual keyboard that was used. That's not like a shitty like little MIDI thing. In morning Mystique, might be my least favorite. Not because it's bad or anything, but because it's long and slow and has a bit of a different pacing compared to the rest of the tracks. Dark Zone, Moderium is probably my favorite off of this, and I just like how, like the intro, the dude just says Dominus Spiritus Satanas. I don't know why that the eeriness of this track just really makes me feel things, and when the female and male vocals come in, I really like that clash because it sounds very chaotic. I like to note that the Dark Rivers of the Heart has a the Dark Rivers of the Heart has the Carol of the Bells melody in it. Um, I think that track is an epic closer. Overall, I wish this band kind of made the guitar louder, but honestly, what they were trying to do is basically use the guitars as more of a supporting pillar to like the orchestra, like the keyboard and stuff, rather than just like having the guitars up front. But as soon as when you go later into their catalog, the guitars do get louder. But I would understand someone not liking this because the guitars are quiet. But this album did grow on me a lot. I think it's a high A tier. That's all I have.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember much of this album, even though I feel like I've listened to it quite a lot. All I know is that it's a fantastic album, and the album cover goes hard. I'd stick it in A tier.
I think this is a high B tier. It's pretty cool. It's a bit too long-winded, in my opinion. Guitar could be louder. The symphonic stuff is pretty well written, which is nice. Sometimes it's not like that. I think they progressed better a little bit. I haven't, well, I guess not progressed. I haven't listened to in Abhorrence Dementia. I've listened to Epitome of Illusions. I think it expands on the Moon and the Scorpio sound a lot better, but that's almost weird because Epitome of Illusions is all re-recorded demo material that came before Moon and the Scorpio, so it's odd. But anyway, I like Moon and the Scorpio. I think it's pretty good. I think there's a couple kinks that can be worked out and could be a lot shorter than it was, but it's still very solid, very high B tier in my opinion.
I think this is a pretty good symphonic black metal album. I think it has some really cool riffs, and like what Tommy said, the synths are actually done really well, which is almost kind of rare. Sometimes they feel like they're just thrown out everywhere. Like my only complaint is, of course, it being a symphonic black metal album, it does drown out a little bit of the guitars and drums and everything else, except the vocals. I think the songs feel a little bit too long, but overall I did enjoy it. I would give it like a B tier.
All right, I want to put at the end of A tier then. All right, next album we're gonna grab. All right, the very first album that was in the tier list. And good luck fucking pronouncing this shit, because I'm not. Okay, I'm just gonna say this is an album by T.H. Terha or whatever, and don't even try pronouncing the fucking album because you're not going to. I think this project is pretty odd sounding, probably one of the most oddest out of all of the albums on this tier list. You have a busy string section in the background, which kind of seems to be one of the loudest things in the mix. This kind of sounds like three bands mixed together. Um, like if Lambonic Art, Emperor, and Blue Dust Snort had like a baby, it probably maybe sound like this. I like the eerie piano at the end of the first track. The second track has a middle section that I enjoy where it kind of leaves room, where it kind of just leaves room to breathe, because you're being fucking pressed up against a wall while listening to this. I do enjoy the higher pitched vocals on here as well. I think the outro track is neat. My overall problem with this is that it feels super condensed and claustrophobic. Um, and just trying to press all these different type of sounds together. It is kind of unique. I'll give it that. But I'd probably give it like a mid to low B tier. And that's all I have.
I don't know what I was really expecting just judging off of the EP's cover and album titles, but I'm ultimately glad to say that I'm in awe. I'm a sucker for cold, atmospheric, and grand sounding black metal. And this EP, especially the second track, served justice. I loved the sense throughout the album, the atmosphere, throughout the EP, the atmosphere and production. I do want to praise the second song, though. It sounds so fierce, especially towards the end. And I would easily give it a 10 out of 10. The guitars were relentless and edgy, and I love when black metal songs showcase that. I had to take a break from cleaning and start noting how I felt about this EP because that song made my heart a little silly. The acoustic track was a cute cherry on top to this ice cream scoop of an album because it was so cold, short, and sweet. I'd stick it in A tier.
Yes, this one is amazing. It's one of the most unique things I've ever heard. For anybody that's played Terraria Calamity mod, the best way I can describe it is black metal mixed with the music from the Devourer of Gods fight. Um, it's really funky, but it's super fun. The first track specifically is so cool. I didn't really know what to think the first time I heard it, but it's just so crazy. The vocals are really good. It's produced super well. The samples used for the strings aren't shitty. Um, it's super great. This guy deserves a lot more love. It's a one-man project, and he's an absolute machine. He's like 10 EPs this year or something like that, and they're all this good. It's insane. 9 out of 10, mid S tier for me.
So like a little thing I know about this guy is you can't really pronounce anything he does because he kind of made up his own language. It's like some kind of like fantasy magic shit. I think that the EP is really interesting. It's noisy, but it has some really cool riffs. I think the vocals are really interesting. I don't have too much to say about it. The drumming is fast, nice and fast, but it is a little buried. I'd give it like a high B tier.
Alright, I guess I'll stick it in the middle of A tier then. Alright, next album we get is. Okay, this is Bloodfire. We finally get a Bathory album. This is Bloodfire Death by Bathory. This is the Bathory album for some, one of the most influential albums, not just for black metal but for Viking metal as well. A Find You to Die is just an amazing fucking track. It's like you're getting pumped up and ready for battle. That song is just masterfully crafted. I never really liked the Golden Walls of Heaven very much. I always found it to be the weakest track of this album, and I don't really return to it, even if I go and listen. Actually, well, I just let the album play, but it's not really an album or song that I go back to. Songs like Pace Till Death, just the like that the intro is fun, and the chorus is pretty catchy as well. The title track and for all those who died, I think are better. I think this might be this is up until this point into Quorthon's career. This is the best produced album by them. But it's not my favorite though. I think Corthon does a great job at merging the two sounds that he has helped innovate with this album, but masterfully crafted the black metal sound on the previous album, which we will get to eventually. The production has the typical 80s like extreme metal production to me, and this album also has blistering solos. So this is not my favorite Bathory album, but it is definitely a banger. Um, Low S tier for me. Come on, Monica, give us your hot take.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to take care of these two kids. Um, Setting aside the fact that this is my least favorite black metal Bathory era album out of their other four or other three, this album is still pretty good. Aside from the intro, you start off with this crazy rush of a song titled A Fine Day to Die. Now, the songs after A Fine Day to Die and before the self-titled are good, but it's nothing crazy. The riffs don't do a whole lot for me and feel a little underwhelming when you have two 11 out of 10 songs that start and end the album. The one song I do appreciate a little more than the rest of the quote unquote fillers is For All Those Who Died because the main riff is groovy and I always imagine myself dancing to it. Bloodfire Death quite literally leaves me speechless as it's nothing short of amazing. I'd put this album in A tier. And also, one last thing to mention about the filler songs, they're still good. They just don't really um compared to the first and last track of the album. So I'd stick this in A tier.
I think this is Bathory's peak. Um, very, very good album. Very thrashy, which I like. I always like when older black metal has a bit more thrash in it. Pretty good production, like, especially given the period in time this came out. Um, some pretty nice ambient, but it's more of an in-your-face type album, which I rarely like that kind of thing in black metal, but this is really good. It kind of lives on the riffing, um, like very, very much lives on the riffing. Um, 9 out of 10, solid S tier. The best Bathory one. For All Those Who Died, by the way, is like an amazing song. So, I give it a mid S tier.
Um, it is a really good album. It is a really good album. Maybe like a tad bit overrated. I think it is mostly guitars. Yeah, the riffs are amazing. The shredding solos are great. The bass is there. That's actually really cool, and it kind of stays in nice and in like a nice groovy pocket. The drumming is good, but not too notable. The vocals are amazing. They have a very epic sound. It's very influential, but it's not my favorite from them. But I'd still give it like an A tier.
I think we'll just put it at the very start of A then. All right. Next album we get is, all right, cool. This is, honestly, I'm kind of interested to talk about this one. This is In the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor. To start, Emperor as a whole, I've never really seen or put on a high pedestal as a lot of other people, and this album is not an exception. I've never really thought this was a masterpiece of an album like some people do, but however, I do think it's their best album. Cosmic Keys to My Creation and Times slaps, great track. I just realized that the guitars are kind of mixed, how they are on the Immortal debut, which is not on this tier list, but it's kind of like, I don't know, grimy, just like kind of in the back, like recorded in a cave. Um, Beyond the Great Vast Forest is also great. The Majesty of the Night Sky seems a little majestic. I think the cover of Fine Day to Die is pretty good, but I definitely prefer the original still. Because I feel like the original was a lot more triumphant. Overall, I think this is a good album, but I don't think it's a masterpiece or a top 10 black metal album in general. I'd give it a solid A tier. That's all I have.
I used to be an Emperor hater, unfortunately. And although I still believe that this album is praised a little way too much. I have actually grown to now like this album, surprisingly. Um, I do appreciate the symphonicness of it a lot more than I used to. I have found myself enjoying the songs a lot more than I used to as well. The album cover is great. Their cover of I Find Way to Die is also really good, but like Aaron said, it's not as good as the original. I also really like their Gypsy cover of Merciful Fate. I thought that was a nice addition. Overall, I don't really have much else to say other than I'm glad that I'm starting to like this album a lot more. And I like the guitar tone a lot. I found myself really enjoying the vocals a lot more now as well. So I'd stick this in probably a high B tier.
Um, I like this one. Um, cool kind of melodic parts. Um, other than I'm gonna with Monica on this one. It's like entirely unnotable. um, it's pretty good, but I feel this album gets overhyped to like an absolute extreme. I Am the Black Wizards is a really good song, but other than that, there's like nothing notable on this. I give it like a pretty solid B tier, but I think this gets overrated crazily in general.
The Emperor is probably the most iconic symphonic black metal band, but that doesn't mean I don't think they're the best. Like it kind of sounds like they're just playing just some normal mid black metal, and they just threw they just had the idea to throw some symphony over it, and they just got really popular. I don't even think this is their best album. I think their second is a lot better. The riffs are really good. It has some cool leads in it too, but I don't know. I just really don't have that much to say about it. I think it's good, but not that good. I think it's like high B tier.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We could put it in the top of B tier. All right, next album we get. Okay, cool. We got Sherm. To start, I do like how the opener fades into the second track. I always like the transitions. Um, but I don't really have much to say about this one because I mean it's fine. It's average Atmo Black that kind of falls short for me in some fronts. Nothing really sticks out to me. I think the riffs are okay. I do think their release earlier this year is a lot better. Um, but I'd give this like very low B to a strong C. And that's all I have.
I don't really recall too much of this album despite me listening to it recently. I will say that I did like the first three songs off the album. I didn't really care for the other two, the last two. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I would stick it in B tier. There's nothing really much notable to say.
Um, this is another one man project that's just really cool. Um, this guy's an absolute beast. He's like 3, 4 projects a year. They're all pretty consistent in quality. Um, it's a very ominous album. It's got a very ominous atmosphere. Um, I really like this guy's riffing style. I think his riffing is incredible. Um, I think the production on this is super nice and airy. Um, another another plus side is it's Ukrainian black metal that isn't horrendously racist, so that's somewhat of a rarity. So that's kind of nice to see. But beyond that, I give it a pretty mid A tier, solid album.
Though there's not really anything special about it, I kind of like it. It's a cool little EP. I enjoy the atmosphere it gives. A nice mix of epic, melodic, and relaxing. Stars has some good riffs, and I think it's the best track on it. The acoustic parts are really nice, and for a few of them, they're actually played by another dude. The drumming is solid, and even though there's not much to say about it, I don't have much to say about it. I think it's a good album. It's repetitive, but in kind of a good way. But I'd put it in like a high B tier.
Yeah, I think I'll put it right behind Emperor then. Alright, next album we're gonna get is cool, the one I was just reading my review about. Alright, I don't really need to freaking say the name of this album because everyone will know. This album is very controversial to me because I do believe this is the most overrated black metal album of all time. But I won't say it doesn't have redeeming qualities because it does. I think a lot of the riffs are very solid. I think Freezing Mood is a great song. I love how I love the section where the everything cuts out, but it's just the bass and it's just playing those two very just those power chords. As well, I do think Pagan Fears is a great song as well, which is probably my favorite off of it. I do like how the drums sound, and I do like the guitar tone. Buried by Time and Dust sounds like a gutted version of a song from Pure Holocaust. And my main problem with this is just how fucking annoying the vocals are. It just sounds like Abbott. He was just lazy. And I really don't see how anyone would say this is the best black metal album of all time when there's a lot of variety in the genre. And it did not even start black metal. This came out in '94, I think. You already had like two or three Immortal albums and Darkthrone albums out by then. So, I'd give this, for the riffs, I'd give this a B tier. For everything else, probably a very high C. But that's all I have.
I'm conflicted on putting this album in either A tier or B tier because personally, it's not a bad album. It's just so overrated when you have so much more black metal albums out there that showcase a lot more talent and better riffs and stuff. But Freezing Moon, Life Eternal, and the self-title, those three tracks stand out to me the most out of all the other ones. The other ones I tend to forget a little more. Life Eternal is probably my favorite song off the album. I just love, yeah, it's the same repetitive riff for the most part, but I just love it so much. The Mysteries, I feel like that song is a little underrated out of the rest of the songs, but it's still a great song. Freezing Moon is iconic. It was really nice to see them play that song live when we saw Mayhem not long ago. Life Eternal was also awesome live. I believe they play that song too. But yeah, the album cover I think is iconic. I don't really have much else to say. The vocals, they could be a little better. They almost remind me of Inquisition a bit, but they're like cousins, is what it reminds me of. But yeah, otherwise, I think I'd put this album in like a low A tier, high B tier.
I am a certified Mayhem hater, but for as big of a Mayhem hater as I am, you know what? This pleasantly surprised me. It's not that bad. It's not that good either, but it's really not that bad. It is I mean, it makes sense, but it's the most bog standard piss shit, like, black metal sounding black metal like ever. Absolutely nothing of note on there. Freezing Moon's good, Life Eternal's good, decent low B tier, not the worst thing ever, but not good really either. Yeah, pleasant surprise.
I think this album has some solid riffs, mainly on the intro to Freezing Moon, of course, being iconic in black metal. Life Eternal also has some good slow riffs. Most of the others are just straightforward mid black metal riffage. The drumming is probably the highlight for me. It's got got a nice tone to the snare with some good tom tones and with mixed with the black metal reverb that they use. The bass sounds like white noise. Most of the album is unfortunately watching paint dry. And I don't know. I don't understand why bro couldn't choose to have good normal black metal vocals, and then he chose to just randomly switch to that weird shit. Um, Overall, it's not as bad as people say, but it's not that good either. It's like the most overrated but also overhated black metal album ever. It's like the most standard black metal album being the most popular for some reason. I'd give it a C tier.
All right, I think we'll put it right there then. All right, next album we get. Okay, we got another album that is my neighbor's gonna talk my ear off. This is Old Morning's Dawn by Summoning. This is a pretty interesting album. When I think of this band though, I think of the Blue album. Like, I forget what that Blue album is called. Um, the title track is a pretty cool folky atmospheric track with some pretty catchy riffs. Kariana Haras has a pretty cool synth line. Um, the melody makes me feel like I'm on a journey in the Middle Ages. The last track is pretty cool. The vocals here remind me of another band I can't put my finger on. My main gripe with this album is that while it is cool and grand, I do think the songs drag and don't really keep my attention the entire time. I'd probably put this in a low A or high B tier. That's all I have.
Right off the bat, this album's S tier for me. It is my favorite song or my favorite album by Summoning in general. This has easily become one of my most listened to albums of the year. I love the cold, muddy, and grand atmosphere that the album showcases, as well as the muddy guitar tone. The keyboards and synths are a great addition that really enhances the album, as well as the trumpets played throughout. Vocals are great, the choirs that play are beautiful, and I really enjoyed the shadowy female vocals in the song The White Tower. The opening violin in Karadras creates a beautiful transition from a song that sounds almost mysterious. Another opening that I really cherish is Earthshine. The piano and gloomy sound of the trumpets embrace you for what I consider to be the most depressing song off the album. Even the flute kind of sounds like it's mourning. That whole song to me just kind of reminds me of someone's funeral. Also, the album cover, I love the colors used in it. I love the picture painting in general. I just there's no dull moments in this album. I love it so much. I love the atmosphere. I love the drums. Every single thing that you can hear, I love it so much. I easily S tier.
Yeah, I like it. Um, I mean, I agree. It drags very hard. Here, there, and there. Drags very, very hard. It's very long. It's well composed, and there's good riffing. But for how well composed it is, I'm gonna be honest. These synth pads are fucking horrible. They sound like shit. I mean, this came out in like what, 2012, right? I mean,
2013.
2013. It shouldn't have been that hard to find better synth pads. I like how well written this is, but I think just a little bit more thought into the production of the album could have made it way better. So I'd give this like an 8.5 if the synth samples were better. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 just on the grounds of it sounds like shit. B tier to me, B tier.
I'm so glad you guys like this album a little bit. Because this was, I'm so sorry, but this was one of the most frustrating albums I've ever listened to.
Oh,
Yeah, it was just like I couldn't stand the drum beat. It was like that weird mix of tom and snare the entire time. Um, I feel like the riffs I couldn't really find much real variation in between, and but the flute shines. I like that. The horn is cool, even though I wasn't a huge fan of it. I think all the songs have the kind of the same structure, despite them trying to be really unique. And the pacing is a I'm not a huge fan of the pacing of the album, and I unfortunately would put this in C tier.
All right. Well, Monica's heard
I'm
this
gonna
yet?
cry.
Yeah. So we're gonna put it
Ouch.
right here next to. Oof. Ouch. Yeah, that's gotta hurt.
At least it's
We
right
haven't
next to
we haven't
Judas's
gotten to the big
Prayer.
one yet.
Oh lord.
Yeah, I already know.
I'm sorry.
Here we go. And next is, hell yeah, we got Peak Part 4, I think, for me. This is Those of Unlight by Marduk. This is my second favorite Marduk album. Couldn't include Dark Endless because that is a death metal album. Very, very, very good riffy black metal album. Wolves is a massive highlight of this album. Very groovy, slow and melodic song for the most part. I really like how the bass shines on this album, like in on Darkened Wings. I am not sure why Burn My Coffin fades out for like a good 30 seconds and then comes back in. Good song still. Echoes of the Past is one of my favorite instrumentals ever. Um, I made a song. I did write a song that was very much influenced by that track as well. Um, the main melody in the last half gives me gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it. So good. Very very good album in my top 10. In my top 10 black metal albums of all time. Little to no complaints about this one. Great production, riffs, vocals, drumming, bass, etc. I think my only complaint would be like in Burn My Coffins, where it fades out for 30 seconds and then comes back in. Like, just go to the next song, bro. But that's all I have for that.
Fun fact, I used to have a shirt with this album cover on it when I still lived at my parents' house. And then my mom saw it with the massive logo, Marduk logo. And she took it from me, refunded my money, and burned it somewhere. Anyways, the whole album, well, right off the back, I'd give this album an A tier. I think it's a really good album. I love the vocals, drums are really cool. I don't really have, if I'm being honest, some of the only songs that I remember, because I haven't heard this album from start to finish in a while, is Those of the Unlight, Wolves, Stone Stands Its Silent Vigil, and Echoes from the Dark Past, or Echoes from the Past. Echoes from the Past is one of my favorite, probably acoustics of all time. It's so good. I love the melodies. And it's a song where you could listen to it when you're just going through it in life. And then Stone Stands Its Silent Vigil is a great way to end the album. It's a great song. Overall, I don't really have any complaints. And last thing I want to say is that the guitar tone on this album is, I want to say, unique. It's distinct compared to the rest of their Marduk albums. So yeah, I'd say this is A tier.
I'm really not sure what happened to this one for me. I used to be a big fan, but on the last listen, I just didn't really get it that much. I think it's pretty bland and kind of generic. Couldn't tell you what any of the songs really sound like outside of the title track. Production is strangely thin. There's just no bass presence at all. Not even in the guitar tones. Like, I mean, black metal's thin anyway, so it was enough for me to notice and be like, it's kind of weird. But I don't dislike it, but I don't really love it either. I'd give it a low B tier, low B tier for me.
I will say that I don't like it as much as I used to. But it still is one of my favorites. I love the overall sound of it. It's probably like my favorite, very straightforward black metal album. It's like the riffs are really simple, but they're really effective. I think On Darkened Wings kind of sounds like John Carpenter's classic score from Halloween. It's got some cold yet kind of melodic parts. I don't have too much to say about it because it's like almost it's very simple, but it's very effective. And I give it like an A tier.
Oh, y'all are killing me here. I'm not gonna lie.
At least they're not slaughtering you.
Yeah, whatever.
You haven't got the worst of it yet.
Oh boy.
Okay. Next album we're gonna get is Sick. All right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. This is the Triarchy of the Lost Lovers by Rotting Christ. Rotting Christ used to be the king of riffs. Used to be. This album is packed with some of the sickest riffs of all time, as well as some of the catchiest leads of all time, like in the opener of King of the Stellar War, like infectious melody. Snowing Still gives me a cold vibe, like you're sitting and watching a snowstorm from inside, despite that Rotting Christ overall as a band gives me more like fall feelings rather than a cold feeling. Snowing Still is like a top 25 best song for me of all time. This is probably one of the catchiest albums on the list, next to like Black. I could not find myself to stop humming to any of the songs ever. Like with I could not stop either humming to like one with the forest, just awesome. I think this album has great production, amazing riffs, riff after riff. Just out of all these albums, I think this would be the one that's jam packed with the most riffs ever. This is a straight S tier for me. That's all I have.
It's been a bit since I've listened to this album front to back. All I remember is that I'd stick this album in A tier. All songs I recall were really good. I really like the guitar tone. I really love his vocals on this album. Well, in the older albums in general. Snowing Still is honestly the one song for some reason that I can remember vividly because I do have it in a playlist of favorite songs. Um, but yeah, otherwise, I'd stick this in A tier, and also the album cover I really enjoy.
I really like this one a lot. I think it's nice to have a bit of a slower paced black metal album every once in a while. I like that it's not going 1,000 miles an hour all the time, which I don't mind when black metal does that, but it's nice to just have a little bit of something to break up the monotony. Um, I like the more gothic elements in this album a lot, which is strange because I'm not a big fan of gothic music. I like how mellow some of it is. It's a very mellow album, very wintry album, very melancholic. I like Snowing Still a lot. That's a very good song. Vocals could be a bit better, but I really like them. Yeah. Um, Low A tier, high B tier, somewhere around there.
Like fucking this is probably my second favorite black metal album ever. It's just riffs upon riffs upon riffs. That's why Rotting Christ is so mid nowadays. They just ran out of riffs. Um the slow melodies are just astonishing. I think the drumming is a phenomenal pair with the slower riffs. It's got an amazing groove. I love the snare tune too. It's got a nice high tone to it. The whole album just flows perfectly, and I'm a huge fan of the use of pinch harmonics in it. I would say more about it, but then I'd feel like I'd take up this entire video. So I'm just gonna end it at I'd put it in S tier.
Yeah, I think at the very end of S tier would suffice, in my opinion, because Yeah, look at this fucking. Anyway, next album we get is okay. This is 1184 by Winder. I think this is a great album. I think this is one of the albums where the folk elements in the background are really, really good. I really love the screeching vocals. Dance of the Mortal Lust is a banger. Black New Age also has a baller thrash type riff, that I enjoy. Into the Journey has the best riff in the album to me, but it is a shame that the album, or it is a shame to me that the song itself is just repeats a lot. It's like I think it's like an 8 minute song. It has the best riff in the entire album, but wow, they really butchered that song. I think the incorporation of clean riffs or clean vocals is done really well in this album. Um, this is probably my favorite by them. Very good mix of folk, kind of symphonic, and mellow black. I'd probably put this at a very solid high A tier. That's all I have.
First of all, I love the folky Viking elements that this album brings. I appreciate that a lot more ever since I've been appreciating folk elements in metal a lot more ever since I got into Bathory. It's like the band brings in some of their patriotism and that they're so proud of it. I love this album a lot, and a big reason is because of the synths. I'm a sucker for synths in black metal. I have no complaints. Each song stands out from one another and has its own unique character that makes you not get tired of it so easily. My favorite song is Hydra. I'd put this album in S tier.
I really like this one. Um, it's very fun because it's got a good mix of being in your face and also being atmospheric. I think it builds tension extremely well, and then it releases it very well as well. I'm gonna agree. Good synths, good synths. It's not too much of it, not too layered. Pretty decent samples. Um, I really like this one. Mid A tier, not a whole ton to say, but yeah, overall very nice. Overall, very nice.
There's probably one of the most epic black metal albums I've ever listened to. Even though I don't have a ton to say about it. It's got some of the coolest riffs I've ever listened to. A lot of them with a fast thrashy twist to them. Very, like I said, a very good use of synths. They're a little subtle, but very tasteful. Drumming is great. Nice fast drumming. Great harsh vocals, great clean vocals, and I think this has got to be one of my favorite black metal albums. I'd S tier.
Alright, since two people has put it in S, I will put it at the very bottom of S tier then. Alright, moving on, we get. Alright. This is. I'm not pronouncing that. This is a band called Havukunu. Um,
I'm
just
Japanese.
it's I think it's Finnish. It looks like it. Um, Pretty solid. This kind of gives off like enslaved slash Moon Sorrow vibes, with the riffs and the clean vocal passages. As this album goes on, I feel like it starts to lose me a bit, and there aren't really very many. There aren't much elements here that I enjoy like that I enjoy compared to like bands like I said, Enslaved and Moon Sorrow with that folky type of black metal. I think the performances on this thing are good, but it starts strong, but it like dwindles for me, and it gets kind of tedious. Completely unnotable for me. I think it's a low B tier. Yeah, that's all I have.
This album reminds me a lot of Moon Sorrow, and I've been needing some more Moon Sorrow-esque music to listen to. It kept me engaged throughout, especially with its captivating riffs and grand guitar tone that I always appreciate in songs. I honestly don't have much else to say, so I put this album in A tier.
I'm a big fan of this one. This was a band that I found from purchasing discount CDs at a record store. I had no idea who it was. They were like $1, and it was all three of their albums. I was like, oh shit, why not? I was really pleasantly surprised with it. It's very nice. Very atmospheric. I love the clean vocals, and I love the um, more like folky, like pagan chants that come in sometimes. I think that's really fun when that's done well and it's not doesn't come off as like overly edgy. It just fits super well into the atmosphere of the album. Another plus is, like I said with the Ukraine example earlier, it's a very rare Finnish black metal band that isn't horrendously racist, so that's kind of a plus. Um, Overall, very good. High A tier for me.
I was a pretty big fan of this one. It has a very open, epic sound, great melodic riffs, great thrashy riffs. The leads and solos are really good. It's got some nice fast drumming, solid vocals, weird sounds at the end that go on for too long. It does get a little repetitive, but I think it is overall a really good album. I put it in A tier.
Okay. Um, I guess I'm the only one on this one. So it goes there. Next album we get. Cool. We got.
Yes.
Someone's happy.
Yes.
Sorry.
This is Through the Veils of Darkness by Gehenna. This is kind of lost in the realm of 90s Norwegian black metal, and to be honest, it should be talked more about. The melody in Kunima, I don't know, in the second half is pretty sick. I very like the triumphant feeling this album has, like in the song "The Witch Is Born." Um, the title track is a banger with the main riff slash melody. Really like the MIDI synths. Change it. Uh, Myth is a very epic sounding song with the intro kind of sounding like "Don't Fear the Reaper." Um, Dark Poems Art Author, is also a banger. I imagine the album cover like taking place in like an old library, and I don't know why. Or no, not that cover. Just the album in general. I just imagine like the atmosphere is just like an old library. I think it's a good album. I'd put it in a solid A tier.
Now, this is my favorite album of all time. I come to this album a lot as a form of therapy, even when I feel fine. I never once have gotten tired of it. Every single song has its own unique, distinct characteristic that keeps the album engaging for me throughout. The synths and keyboards are a major reason why I love this album so much, as well as the buzzy, muddy guitar tone and drums. Almost kind of reminds me of a mosquito. They all tie in so perfectly to create a cold, almost fantasy-like sounding album. I love how atmospheric the songs can get, and the vocals are great, especially the higher pitches. Through the Veils of Darkness is my favorite song of all time, and the atmospheric riff and synths the start at minute 217 evokes such a dopamine hit that I never get tired of. I hear the song through my I hear that song through my ears and it goes into my veins. And I don't think I've ever heard a song that has made me feel to that extent. Call of a Call of the Grave by Bathory is a close call though. Every song is an 11 out of 10 and I put this song in triple S tier if I could. I'd put this album in triple S tier if I could. It's so amazing. Literally, if it's so good. I love it.
That's pretty all right.
Okay.
Pretty solid. Symphony parts really help break up some of the monotony in this album. Um, Across the board, I don't have anything to say about it other than that I didn't hate it. Mid B tier, pretty good.
Damn it, Tommy.
It was a pretty good album. It kind of sounds like if there was a soundtrack for the Salem witch trials. Has a old spooky haunted sound. The riff,
Perfect.
I didn't hear anything that stood out to me too much aside from some leads. The bass is audible, which is cool. The drumming is pretty good. Myth had some cool variation in it. I think the second half was a little bit stronger overall. And I give it like a nice A tier.
Yeah, so to confiscate, we're putting it right here. I know Monica's crying right now. Alright. Next album we get is we got Peak Part 5. Okay, this is At the Heart of Winter by Immortal. This is in my top 10 black metal albums of all time. This is the first Immortal album where Abbott took over guitar duties, and thank God they did. The guitar tone is so good. It's like the crunch of stepping on snow was a guitar tone. I really also enjoy the clean guitar breaks in some of the songs, which I've also noticed quite a lot of modern black metal bands pick up that's whatever you want to call it, just he basically started that in this genre. This album is packed with riffs after riffs. Their best this band's best riffs in my opinion. I also really enjoy the concept of the album, which is basically like creating your own fantasy land, like compared to the last three albums, where it's just like snow and the devil. Um, let's see here. My main gripe is that the playing here is kind of messy at times. Like the second riff in Tragedies blows that horizon. Um, my favorite track here is where dark and light where dark and light don't differ. Some of the sickest riffs I've ever heard. Um, even though it is even though this like the playing like on record is a little messy sometimes, this is pretty much a borderline 10 out of 10 for me. Definitely S tier. That's all I have.
I don't have much to say about this album other than easy S tier for me. The album cover is beautiful. I love all the colors used. Um, Solar Fall, all these songs are amazing. Each song has its own riff that just makes you want to basically inflict whiplash upon yourself. It's so good. Love the drums. I love Abbott's vocals on here. Just overall, amazing album. No complaints. Tier.
Yeah, I do really like this one. Um, Overall, I'm not a huge Immortal fan, but I think this is definitely their peak from what I've heard of them. The riffing is amazing in this album. It gets kind of thrashy at times, which I really appreciate. Um, Very melodic. Vocals aren't great, but that's okay. Um, I love the drum sounds. The toms are tuned so well on this album. It's fucking crazy. And just the way they cut in the mix is awesome. Beyond that, Solar Fall is a really good song. I like that one bridge riff. I had some really good riffs in that song. I'd give it middle of A tier overall.
So this is gotta be one of the best black metal albums ever, obviously. It's melodic, it's epic, and it's soul crushing. I absolutely love the guitar tone. It's gotta be one of my favorite black metal guitar tones ever. The drumming is absolutely fantastic. It's just like no misses there. That drumming is amazing. I love the sound of it too. The production for it is kind of key to me. It makes you kind of feel like you're overlooking that frozen fortress that's on the album cover. And I really love when the music kind of makes you feel like you're kind of in the album cover. Once again, like epic riffs, and it's just phenomenal. I give it S tier.
Alright, poggers, dude. Alright. Next album we get is this is The Everlorn by Senera. In my opinion, this is the section worship perfected. I've not heard any other band that worships this band that has hits the riffs and the mood just like this band. I think it perfectly captures, like I said, the beauty and the style of the riffs of the section. Title track is a prime example, very melancholic. Sounds like the Somberlane had a baby with Sacramentum. this is like basically a very long, more long and moody version of the section. Like this is a type of album I would load on if I am in that kind of somber mood or whatever. Um, but very good. I would probably put this in high A tier. I think it's a very well done album. Besides, like a couple of the songs, like near the end of the album, are a little long winded, but I still like them. That's all I have.
It's really cool to know that there's a band from the same area code that I used to live in, just down the road. So I think that's really cool that that band is from there. Which I always love supporting local bands from where I grew up. It's cool to know that there are people out there releasing great music just miles. Oh, I already said that. Anyways, this album is great. Dissection Worship. Gardens of Pestilence is beautiful, especially the part around 3 minute 320 where it ramps you up for a killer tremolo riff. The rest of the songs are good as well. Each song has good riffs, great drumming, and the production is crisp and clear. I'd put this album in A tier.
I really like this one. I think it's some of the best riffing in black metal, just period. Especially for being a one-man project. This is super well done. Um, Very healthy mix of some death metal stuff in there to stop it from getting stale with its length. My only real gripe is the drum machine is pretty noticeable. Like they're not the best samples, but I can get over that just because of how well composed this is. It's really great stuff. High A tier.
I'm so glad I wrote notes for this because I don't really remember much of it. So I didn't know that it was pretty popular among the server for a second, and I hadn't listened to it before then. It has some amazing epic riffs, great melodies, very fast playing. I don't have too much to say about it, but Gardens of Pestilence is cool, and I gave it A tier.
All right, finally, fucking tier what we all agree on. All right, next album we get is. All right, cool. This is Slaughter Son by Dawn. I think there are very good riffs and Kneel in the World. I think that song has finally clicked with me. The production kind of reminds me of Reflections by Syntonex, which is a more underrated Swedish death metal band. Um, this album is full of songs that have some really good sections, but most of the songs are alright. Songs I like in full are the opener and the Alphilion Deserts. I think some of the songs could have been chopped down a bit. Overall, some of the songs have good sections, but loses me a lot in places. I do prefer their other album. The other album is in Sweden or Swedish or whatever. And also the EP. I'd probably put this in B tier. That's all I have.
I think I'd put this album in A tier. I think it's a great album. The Aphelion Desert is one of the best melodic black metal songs I've ever listened to. The riffage and drums tie so well. It's so good. Um, all the other songs, well, the intro or the first song is really good as well. All the other songs I don't really remember if I'm being honest. All I know is that it's a great album. All the songs I really enjoyed. I'd stick it in A tier.
Overall, I think it's pretty enjoyable, albeit it's entirely too long-winded, and a lot of the songs kind of do nothing. The riffing is really good overall. There's some really nice kind of neoclassical composition. My one thing I will say is for music kind of like this that has some more neoclassical parts, dynamic range is pretty important, but it's kind of just loud all the time. I mean, that's just more of a recording problem, though. It's something kind of weird. The hi-hat's pretty cool. I don't know what hi-hat they were using on this. I really dug the hat sound, though. Malediction Murder is a really good song.
One thing I don't really understand is this band has been together since they started, but I haven't really seen them play live in really ever. But anyway, this is my favorite black metal album ever. It's very fast, very, but it is fast, but it's not really well paced. It's my favorite, but I still have some negative things to say about it. I think the riffs are fucking awesome. The leads on the Atholian Deserts are amazing. Um, it just makes you feel, to me, it makes me feel like I'm just flying. It's one of those albums that gives you a cool feeling. I think all the riffs are really good. Yeah, it drags a lot. Yeah, it drags for too long, but I give it S tier. It's my favorite.
All right. I'd probably put it right there then.
That's fair.
All right, we're pretty much playing Rush Roulette right now with these four, and then the last one we do. So what are we gonna what are we gonna get? Okay, thank God. All right, this is Under the Sign of the Black Mark by Bathory. Um, I think here is where the sound for second wave bands start to take up and expand and perfect. The sound for second wave black metal pretty much started here, in my opinion. Um, the album is dark and, shall I say, quote unquote evil sounding. Massacre is a good example. Production on Woman of Dark Desires I always found kind of weird, especially when you're listening with headphones. Like a lot of things are, yeah, like some things are like panned to the left for some reason on that song specifically. The rest of the album is fine, but yeah. Call from the Grave is just genuinely a masterpiece of a song, probably in my top 25 songs of all time. Love the haunting vocals done by Quorthon, and the solo is just simple but effective. Echoman Thorn is basically a better Massacre, and dude pretty much be rapping on that track. Kendrick would never diss him. Am I right? I'm not funny. um, Enter the Eternal Fire is another masterpiece off this album. I think the lyrics to this album or to that song is pretty cool. It's about a dude who gets intrigued by the eternal fire, like aka the devil, and the devil tricks him, and he gets pulled down to hell. And at the end of that track, you hear the doubled vocals, like the doubled vocals, and it's like very devilish, and that's pretty much what that is portraying. Um, 13 Candles is also a bop too, with its slow and devilish atmosphere. Of Doom is basically about the fans of Bathory if you read the lyrics. Um, Production is pretty. The production, I can't argue. It's pretty bad, but the songs are so fantastic that it pays off. I would definitely put this in S tier. That's all I have.
Straight off the back, I'd put this album S tier easily. This is the album that used to be my favorite of all time before it got replaced by Gehenna's other album. The album cover is probably one of my top 10 album covers of all time. It's legendary. I love it. Um, Woman of Dark Desires is a really, really cool song. Call from the Grave is also probably one of the best songs that Quorthon has ever written. I love how specifically cold this song sounds. It sounds so cold. It sounds haunting. It sounds eerie, especially towards the end where he's calling from the grave. It just sounds like he's like desperate to get out of hell, desperate to get out of his like the hellfire. It's so good. It's so vivid. Equimanthorn is a great song. I think the song is kind of silly, especially towards the end. Enter the Eternal Fire is my second favorite song off the album. And then followed by 13 Candles. I really like the song for some reason. It reminds me of birthday cakes. And then Of Doom, I find it really thoughtful that Quorthon thought of his fans, so he made the song kind of dedicated towards his fans. Overall, amazing album. I love the kind of shit production that this has. I think it's a good characteristic that just makes this album complete is the production. I love the guitar riffs. The drumming is really good and loud, and I love that. Overall, S tier, awesome album, and it's, in my opinion, this is the album that started black metal and made it go on the route that it currently is.
I do enjoy it. I used to like it a lot more. Um, Again, like I said with Blood, Fire, Death, it's nice and thrashy. A lot more first wave, which is cool. I used to dig first wave a lot more than I do now, but it's super super riffy. Woman of Dark Desires is a really fun song. Production is kind of shit, but it's whatever. I think it's a pretty solid B tier. It's in kind of this like weird limbo state to me where it's not quite the debut, which I really like, and it's not quite Blood, Fire, Death, which I really like. It's kind of like a weird mix between the two. So I give it a B tier.
This is probably my favorite Bathory album, mainly because of the spookier sound it has. Most of the songs have like this classic horror vibe that I really dig, especially A Call to the Grave and 13 Candles. It could be just me, but like you guys said, the production isn't good, but I feel like it changes a little bit in the mix from like certain songs. That could just be me. But it has cool fast riffs. The drumming is a little subpar, but the solos are awesome. You know, it's mainly all guitar riffs. I wouldn't say it's the best Bathory album, but it's definitely my favorite for that reason. I put in S tier.
Alright, we're gonna put it at the very end of S tier though. Alright, God help me. Fuck it, we're just gonna get the elephant out of the room. Alright, so I just want to state I did not imagine I would be defending an Inquisition album. I'm just gonna say that right now. So,
You're welcome.
yeah, shut up. I've listened to 3 albums by this band, and they've always had sick guitar tones. I think their tone are some of the heaviest in all of black metal, and I used to not like the vocals at all. I would laugh every time like Monica would play it in the car. I would genuinely laugh. However, when it's been played to me a bunch of times, I start to grow into it, and yeah. So I still make fun of them from time to time, but they have grown on me, and I've heard way worse black metal vocals. Let's see, and I do have to admit that the vocals are indeed monotone as hell, and would probably get irritating to listen to. Besides in Unholy Magic Attack. Those of the Night is a banger. I don't care what anyone else says. The heavy intro riff and the riff after is just so epic as hell. Big fan of the heavy riffs in Summoned by Ancient Wizards Under a Black Moon. I'm sure most of you, the other two that are about to have some words with this, enjoyed the title track, which has no vocals in it. The bass drum does kind of sound like a slab of meat, and I think the last track in this album is useless. So for the riffs and stuff, I would give this a low A, high B tier. That's all I have.
Inquisition is one of my top favorite black metal bands, or just bands in general of all time. I don't think that Inquisition has put out a single bad album. The lowest I've ranked one of their albums is B tier, and that is their most recent album, which is still good, but it doesn't hit as hard as their previous ones. I personally really enjoy the vocals, and I don't think any other vocals would work best besides his. This album starts off with a killer song that starts off as slow and then ends with a sick, fast-paced riff. Those of the Night is easily the best song off the album. The riffs go slow, deep, and hard until you hit the faster paced part, and all hell breaks loose. Empire of Luciferian Race reminds me of Bathory's Woman of Dark Desires, that first riff. And like Aaron said, Hell of a Cult, which is the last song off the album, that's the only gripe I have with this album. I feel like shouldn't have really been there in the first place. The first couple minutes is good, but then it's like nothing but silence. Come on, dude. So yeah, and then to add on to what Aaron mentioned about guitar tones sounding heavy, that is one thing I love so much about Inquisition is how heavy their guitar tone is. Their riffs, they always provide you with great riffs. And then I also really love the drumming, I love this album a lot. I don't love it as much as their other albums, I will say, but still so good. I would put this in high A tier, maybe low S tier for me.
This album is one of the most disappointing things I think I've ever heard in my life.
Oh,
Because it's so riffy and some of the concepts are really cool. But number one, the kick drum is horrible. Dude, I cannot get over those vocals, dude. It's like, the riffs are really, really cool, and I really wanted to try and like it and go into it with an open mind, but I like full belly laughed like through half of this album. It's so I can't take it seriously at all. And it's an album that's like trying to be pretty serious too. So I don't know, man. High D tier.
well,
High D tier. I'm sorry.
Okay. Starting with the good, which is I did enjoy the drumming, even though it didn't sound that good. It had some good grooves, good blasting, good tone. The production is okay, but man, I could not get over these vocals. Bro, he sounds worn down from life. Like I just fucking couldn't. The riffs are pretty good. The acoustic parts are solid. Even if I didn't find it that good, because it was funny, I did enjoy it. So I'd give it like C tier.
This is where I don't know where to place it.
I'm getting slaughtered in this video, and I got slaughtered in the last video.
Very low, very
Just take a
low,
S tier.
very low B tier.
Oh, that is awful.
All right, we're just gonna go in order of where it is right now. So this is this.
Dude, it's literally the exact same.
All right, so this is peak part 6 for me. This is Born of the Flickering by Old Man's Child. My favorite symphonic black metal album, period. Swallowed by a Buried One is a highlight with the riffs and melodies as well as the choir melody. Very catchy song. I used to not like On Through the Desert Storm because of the pitch shifted vocals going in and out, but I grew into them. Really enjoy how majestic this album sounds. Combining metal black with symphonic black is great. Christian Death is one of the best songs on this album. The last chapter also has a lot of infectious melodies and a very cool solo that kind of reminds me of Unanimated. Very sick riffs throughout the whole album, and sometimes I pay attention to the solos here as well. And if you know me, I pay attention to mostly riffs, and if solos are great, I will pay attention to them. Yeah, so this is an easy S tier for me. I used the alternative cover or the reissue cover for this tier list because I'm not gonna lie, the original cover is kind of terrible. But yeah, that's all I have for this album.
I don't know why I wrote so little for this album, but I've only listened to a couple of songs off this album before I listened to the whole thing, and I'd rate it A tier. It's really good. I was really impressed with it. Oh wait, sorry, I was looking at the wrong notes. Okay, the first few seconds of the first track remind me of Enslaved's. It's their second album. It's called Vikingler, Viking something. It's a green album and it has like a, pardon my, like a
Helmet.
Viking helmet on it. Yeah. That it really reminds me of that a lot. And this other band, which I I don't know, but it's another black metal band that it reminds me of. I love how the ending ended with the acoustic. The whole album's tone was great, and I love the melodic, melancholic parts. Just overall, amazing album. Really impressed with it. S tier.
It's pretty solid. Um, it's not like a super one note thing. It's melodic, but it's also got some more traditional aspects to it. It's a pretty album. I'd call it a pretty album. Um, some of the mythological themes are really dope. I kind of like those. It's just not a ton to say about it. I feel that way about a lot of this stuff. There's not a ton to say about it other than it's pretty good. Um, Solid middle of B tier, I think.
As to not repeat what I've said for most of these, I think I'd say this album is really satisfying. It's really satisfying to listen to. It's got like a very smooth sound, and it feels great to listen to. The riffs flow very well, and they're really good. Holy shit, is that notable bass? That's crazy for black metal. The drumming is pretty good. Wounds from A Night of Magic is also a great instrumental bit. I don't have too much to say about it, but it was really good. So I give it A tier.
Alright, we will put this at the very start of A then. Alright, so next up is Pure Holocaust by Immortal. This is my last peek. To start out, this album is just blistering cold. It is like getting lost in a blizzard, just packed full of cold and dark riffs up to the brim. Unsilent Storms of the North Abyss has an iconic riff and instantly recognizable. The Sun No Longer Rises is a banger and a half. It's probably my favorite off of this album. Just the main riff is just awesome. And it's also groovy while also being blistering cold. It keeps a consistent pace throughout the album with tracks like Eternal Years on the Path to Cemetery Gates, and as Eternity opens, as it brings back some of the groove. So this isn't all just like constant blast beats and stuff. It has quite a bit of groove as well. And this is their second album, so this is the first album where Abbott uses his froggier vocals compared to the debut where he screams more. And I really like the drum sound on this album as well. The title track, if you don't notice, it slips the Imperial March into the song, which is from Star Wars, which I think is kind of funny. Great album, low S tier, and that's all I have.
I also agree that this album is an easy S tier. It sounds cool throughout. I love Abbott's vocals on it. The album cover, I think, is also quite iconic. Yeah, the most notable songs to me are Frozen by Ice Winds and Pure Holocaust. There is a song, um, you have these fast, catchy riffs in every song that makes each song fun to listen to. It sounds like winter, but not in a depressing way, more like in an Abbott smiley way. I don't know if this was intentional, but I like the addition of the Star Wars riff in Pure Holocaust as well. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, overall, amazing album. Every single song has riffs to provide, and just great album overall, S tier.
I'm gonna disappoint some people with this one. I think this album is really, really mediocre. Oh, it's just boring. It's all just kind of the same thing over riffing isn't great. The drums kind of sound like shit. I don't like the super trilly, trebly guitar riffs. Vocals are pretty mediocre. It's not awful, but it's just very okay. Um, high C tier. Not a big fan.
Okay, it was cool that you guys noticed that the Imperial March, because I thought that was just me, to be honest.
Nope.
Because like first time I listened to this thing, I'm like, was that Star Wars? This is probably one of, if not the coldest album I've ever listened to. Like this compared to At the Heart of Winter, you'd be like, this is the same fucking band? The guitar tone has no niceness to it. It's just overall very brutal. The snare kind of sounds like a sledgehammer slamming on ice. The drumming is overall very fast. It's got some great fills and double bass work. The riffs are just amazingly cold. And I think it's just it's just so brutal, and it has just no real melody to it. It's very dark, and I really like it. I give it S tier.
Alright, well, we're gonna give it mid A because Tommy has it at C, and three of us have it at S. Alright, the last one.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
boy.
I sure hope most of us have the same opinion on this one. So this is Drawing Down the Moon by Beharit. This is probably one of the first war metal albums I've ever heard. But I feel like I would like this more if the mix wasn't 95% vocals and 5% literally everything else. There are some sections where the riffs do shine, like in Solomon's Gate, in the last half, as well as Nocturnal Evil. I think Black Arts is solid because for the most part you can hear the riffs. Not sure why they had to make the vocals super loud in the Gate of Nana. Kind of hurts the ears sometimes. I think this album has some redeeming qualities, but the mix is so fucking terrible. I do think this would be a lot better live though if I saw it. Strong C. That's all I have.
I think I might be the imposter among y'all because I give this album A tier. Really like this album, really enjoyed it. The most notable songs to me is Nocturnal Evil, Sodomic Rites, and the Gates of Nana. Also, Solomon's Gate is really good. I personally really like the muffled, kind of buzzy guitar tone. I think that really complements the album. The vocals remind me a little bit of Inquisition's vocals as well. And I don't know what it is with me enjoying those vocals. I just do. Um, I will say that it does sound a little generic, which I get it, but I don't know, I just really like it. Some of the riffs are really good. There are certain songs that just, oof, they sound so good. But yeah, overall, A tier. I don't know if this album gets so much hate, but if it does, I don't think it deserves it at all. I think it's a really good album.
I see. Like, I feel bad for forcing this back into the listening list because I used to really like it, and then I took another listen and I was like, wow, this really is not that good. I agree with Aaron on almost 100% of what he said. I'll give him a little bit more credit for the ambience stuff and the more like synth pad, like ambient dungeon synth tracks and portions. I think those are really nice. But yeah, a high C, I guess. I'm not sure what I used to like about it that much. It's pretty okay.
So, like as war metal as a whole, I actually really enjoy it. Because it's fast, it's aggressive, and it's grindy. But I get none of that out of this fucking album. This has to be one of the most underwhelming black metal albums I've ever listened to. It's so quiet. and there's nothing really aggressive about it either. The riffs of what I can hear aren't amazing. The drumming is kind of meh. The vocals are like the only real solid part that I find from it, which is it sounds like he's trying to do black metal ASMR. I think it's I don't like it. I think it's boring and I think it's stupid and it's the only one that I have in D tier.
Alright, yeah, this is gonna be the only one in C tier then.
I think for being made by a guy who went by the stage name Black Jesus, it could have been way worse.
That's a funny name.
It could have been so much worse.
Alright. That is all the albums we have ranked. I appreciate you guys being here, and I hope everyone watching has a good rest of your day.